conducting Paryushan in English for Jaina, as well as in some other towns as well. She teaches Jainism in English to kids of all ages, and today we are privileged to have her and encouraging youth to participate in Jaina with a simple and practical approach using her scientific knowledge and life experience. She is currently teaching 3 batches of Parmagam honors, one of which is in English. So, very thankful to have you here, ma'am. And you can start this discourse with your Mangalachan. Thank you.
Thank you, Harshal. Jai Jinendra, everybody. Namo Arihantanam, Namo Siddhanam, Namo Airiyanam, Namo Uvachayanam, Namo Loe Savasahunam. Jai Jinendra Sabiko. Thank you, Jeev, to invite me to cover this very important topic. Even though it sounds like a very basic topic, we all know we don't want to sin. You know, we've been taught from childhood, no matter what religion we came from. Most religions don't believe that doing violence, theft, all these are good, right? All children are taught not to do those things. But there is a lot more to it than simply not doing those sins. And that's what we are here to learn today. You know, in today's time, when you open the news channels, right, whether it's on YouTube, whether it's on your local channel, what do we see? What are the primary news you get to see? There is fire somewhere, there's murder somewhere, there is suicide, there is scams, big corporations doing scams, uh, millionaires doing fraud. That's all we get to hear. We are almost immune to it. Does it make you wonder? How does it make you feel? Why why so much negativity in this world? Why so much bad happening? And you know, unfortunately, the news channels pretty much focus on all these negative things. Every day we are bombarded with these kind of news. Maybe they have a purpose. Maybe they just want to make the general public aware of what is happening and how you can prevent yourself from being a victim. But how should it make us feel? And are we almost getting immune to these news items that we listen and it doesn't even bother us anymore until it actually happens to us or our family members? Let's think about this. Why do you think we are covering this topic? We all are responsible for just me individual. I am responsible for what happens to me, not someone else. We may in routine life blame, our spouses, our children, our whatever circumstances to do wrong. Oh, this person this did wrong to me, so I just took a revenge. But we fail to understand that it's only us who will have to bear the consequence, not someone else. And that is exactly why this topic is so important to learn in detail. It's for our own protection. We are living our own story. We are heroes of our own movie of life. And we want this hero to win, right? So that is the sole purpose of why we bring this to you. Let us look at a little movie clip of how an average, news channels, what do they look like? Of course, it's a made up. It's probably not a real thing, but just to give us an idea, let's look at it. Go ahead, Herschel. I'm not getting volume. It was coming before.
Let
Okay.
me read.
Okay, while we are waiting for Harshilji. Uh, so headlines, what do they cover? Murder, scams, fraud, theft, rape, suicide, domestic abuse, kidnappings. That's all that we get to hear all the time.
I think there's some issue.
A well known politician is involved in a trafficking racket affecting 12,000 young girls. Stockbroker found guilty of committing huge fraud amounting to 50,000 crore rupees. 3 village girls kidnapped by juveniles from the neighborhood. A popular model hangs herself in her farmhouse. Relationship troubles might be the reason. Several celebrities were detained for investigation in a drug racket.
Okay, so that is what today's headlines look like, right? And, what does it make us feel? That so much of this is happening in the world? Could we be one of those? Could our child, could our relative be one of those? Some of us have experienced this. One of our friends' kids committed suicide, and you wonder what happened. Everything was going positive. They have everything one could dream of. Why did their son commit suicide? So let's go over some examples of the news, right? Murder. Recently, we heard the news about Kashmir terrorists, asking their religion and killing people. Cold-blooded. How could they even imagine shooting somebody to death? Then scams. Vijay Malaya of Kingfisher took a huge loan from Indian government and ran away to different countries. Some may think, oh, he's living a luxurious life there. Little do we know that no, he is not. Inside, he is guilty. He is not at peace with himself. Then fraud. You know, so often we hear that bridge broke and killed several people. So the construction people sometimes will mix wrong things, which end up in resulting killing so many people. For what? Just for a few extra bucks. And they don't even know, will it really give them happiness? At the time when these sins are made, unfortunately, they wrongly think that it is going to give them happiness. Theft. Major thefts happen in big corporations. Tax thefts happen even at small levels like you and me. And we're going to look into details. Is it worth doing that? Is it really going to give us happiness? What is the sole purpose of everyone, no matter what we do, whether we earn a living, whether we eat, whether we go on vacation? All of this boils down to one thing we're trying to achieve, and that is to be happy, right? And we're going to analyze that a little bit. What really is going to make you intrinsically happy? Rape. There was the Nirbhaya, very famous case of rape from Delhi. Recently, there was a case in Calcutta where the doctor was raped. Suicide. Sushant Singh Rajput, a very popular actor doing so well at such a young age in his career, decided to commit suicide. Why? He had everything. He got good movies to do, he got good shows to do. Yet, was that not enough? That he got tired of this life and decided to take his life? Domestic abuse. Famous personalities like Muhammad Ali, the famous boxer. His wife was a famous actress, and still he was abusing his wife. She did not come out till very late in life that she was being abused in their relationship. We hear about kidnappings every day. Girls are kidnapped for human trafficking, all kinds of cases. And these events sometimes disturb us, sometimes we are immune to them. We don't even think we hear the news. Some affect us. We discuss with our friends on social events, and that's it. Do you ever wonder why these children are killing their parents? We've heard that also on the news. There are 9/11 was a big thing. These people killed 5,000 people and took their own lives. They suicide and took so many lives. And what did they get? Their one-time life was taken. You think that is enough punishment for these people who took so many lives? Obviously not. That wouldn't sound fair. But in this life, in this normal world we live, the maximum punishment we can give someone is life sentence or death, no matter how many murders they commit, right? So you think there should be a law other than just this, where these people are going to be punished somewhere or the other? And yes, there is. In the universe of karmas, all the people who commit these kind of crimes, they do get their fair punishment, whether we get to see them or not, but they do, which includes us. Every little thought or deed we do, good or bad, has consequences. And such is nature, whether we believe it today or we believe that 10 lives from now. There is no other choice but to believe in that system. And if we learn it, the sooner we learn, the sooner we can protect ourselves from doing any of those things. Now, some of the causes why this happens. One of the major cause is we don't know what the consequences are going to be, right? So we don't think and commit these sins, right? Our understanding of life is delusioned, mithyatva. We don't understand karma theory. We don't understand what the consequences are going to be, why we think it'll make us happy by committing some of these crimes, and why we are not able to think of the consequences. Okay? And what do you think these suicide bombers gain out of these massacres? Unfortunately, they're brainwashed with the wrong things. And of course, those who brainwash them get punished, but they also get punished because their understanding was not correct. And why would anybody want to get involved in these crimes, you wonder? You hear these things about that they take young people, train them to do these kind of acts, suicide bombers and things like that. And we sort of feel sympathy for them because you wish they knew the reality and did not get entangled in these kind of things. And those who resort to this immoral way of life are unaware of the consequences. They indulge in these activities thinking they're fulfilling their desires to gain happiness. But do they really become happy? No. All they get is anxiety, fear, misery, shame, punishment, and bad reputation. And their future is so dark, bleak, painful, and miserable. They get narak. Narak, at least maybe we haven't seen. I could show you some pictures. But Tiryanch, we have seen the animal life forms. We see there are deer that get killed all the time, cows that are being tortured for milk, for beef. So all this animal life, we can see their pain today, right? They get jail, they get a diseased body. You see sometimes these people, they have a lifelong disease. And even if we don't see those people who committed sins getting those, but we do see other people. And you sometimes wonder, in this life, this person is so nice. never did any harm to anybody, then why did he get this big disease or whatever very bad circumstances, tortured by other people, whatever the case may be? Have you ever wondered that? It happens, to some of the nicer people. And that is where the karma theory comes into play. That you may get the consequences of what you do wrong today in this lifetime, or it can wait till next and next and next lifetimes. So we should understand, what are these immoral activities, what are these sins, and why and how can we avoid them. So let us understand this topic of 5 sins. Sins lead to intense suffering in the present and intense misery in the future. One must resolve to avoid them and follow virtuous and noble conduct. So what are the sins? Ill thoughts, harmful words and wrong actions, responsible for driving a soul towards the wrong path, causing its downfall and thereby leading to intense misery and suffering, are known as sins. So some of you who wonder, soul, why am I mentioning driving a soul towards the wrong path? Soul is who we are, okay? We are right now living this very short span of 80, 100 years or whatever, some 40, some 20 years of life. Very, very tiny part of our journey from infinity past to infinity future, right? We will exist. We always existed. We exist today, and we always will exist in the future. And that is why today our circumstances are fruits of our actions and thoughts, either just in the recent past or past several lives. And coming future is what we will experience the consequences of our thoughts and deeds that we do today. And delusion and passions, which is mithyatva and kashai, are impure dispositions, and they are sins too. In fact, they're also root causes of the other 5 sins. All kinds of inauspicious thoughts, words, and deeds that happen under the influence of intense passions and delusions are sins. Now, just let me point this out. I said this very quickly, but I want you to pay attention. Thoughts, words, and deeds. We are quick to see when we see the action. Somebody's killing someone, right? It's easy to say he's doing a wrong thing. What about verbal abuse to people? There is so much verbal abuse happening in schools, which lead students to commit suicides. There is so much torture going on. Kids teasing each other, which brings downfall of some weak-minded students, and they commit suicide. What about our thoughts? We can catch deeds, punish them, the law can punish them. We can maybe even catch words, kids teasing, principal may call them to the room and punish them in some ways. What about our thoughts? Who is watching those? Nobody. We are. But guess what? Every little thought that comes to our mind has a consequence. And that is very important to understand, that be very careful of what you think. If you're jealous of someone, if you think, sometimes they may not have been bad to you, but you think they were, and you think ill for them, and you never realize that that comes back and haunts you. So it's something to be very, very aware of. Now let's look at what are the main sins. There are 5 main types. Violence, injury, which is injury to other people by thought, words, or deeds. And this thought, words, and deeds applies to all 5 of them. Falsehood, telling a lie, theft, which is stealing something, taking something that you don't own, unchastity, that is adultery, or as called as kushil in Hindi, and then possessions, which is called parigraha. So those are the major 5 of sins. Now, why should we understand the details of it? What is the purpose? As I explained, every thought, word, or action has got its consequence. Nothing ever goes futile or in vain. So don't ever think that, oh, so what? I thought ill of that person back then, but now I think he's okay. No, back then what you thought, that consequence is going to come back to you. Good deeds will bring auspicious bondage of karmas that on fruition bears desired effects. So when we get consequences or the circumstances that we like, those are fruits of some of the auspicious karmas that we did. Evil deeds like sins cause inauspicious bondage, bringing undesirable consequences to fruition. And undesirable examples of undesirable consequences could be getting an illness, getting a major loss in business, your house setting on fire. There are so many things. We all have gone through consequences that were not, pleasing to us. It might appear that cruel sinners like terrorists get away without adequate punishment. They may have killed so many and they only got one saja. Or even these murderers in the Kashmir event, one person probably killed multiple people and they only got shot once, right? Or if they're taken to the law system, they are, only punished. But this is not how the law of karma works. If the sinners do not face the consequences in this birth, they will do so in several consequent births. And to prove this, we have this example of this flight that just came down and killed 240 some people, right? A lot of people wondered why all these innocent people all had to die at the same time. A lot of them were just average, normal people making a living, taking their families back to London. What's wrong with that? They were all normal people. What did they do wrong to have to be killed in such an incident with no fault of theirs? It sounds like no fault of theirs. Now, let me correct that. It is not. It is their own fault that this consequence happened to them. Why did it not happen to that one person who was able to walk out? That door automatically opened for him and he was on the wing and he could completely just easily walk out, right? Yes, there are several theories. That was not his time yet, whatever. But it all boils down to karmas. And these are no real miracles that somebody did not make it to that flight because they did not have that karma to get this kind of fruit. And we may say, oh, there's some God sitting up there and preventing this person to not go. There can be several theories. But what we learn out of it is that, yes, it's our own doing that gives us those kind of consequences. Because the soul never dies. And it takes its remaining balance of good or bad karmas with it in the next birth. That is why it's one's best interest to understand sins and avoid them to their best ability. And how would you do that? You really want a system where you understand so those things naturally don't happen. You naturally don't feel like committing those sins. Not that you have to prevent yourself. Of course, you should try to prevent yourself. We teach our children not to pluck flowers, little things like don't even kill an ant, don't even walk on grass. Those are just to give our children this feeling of compassionate living. But the deeper meaning lies in teaching them the moral science behind it, preventing them from doing bad deeds, which will result in bad consequences. So, major things like violence, falsehood, theft, unchastity are also punishable by law and condemned in society, but only if they get caught, mind you. If they don't get caught, who is there to punish you, right? But the law does not punish minor sins. Is the law going to punish you if you just plucked a flower? No. But they attract bad karmas, and the soul will bear its consequence sooner or later. Now, the fifth item, which was accumulating possessions, it is hardly seen as a sin. We don't even think having a huge house, having multiple cars, having Mercedes, is that a sin? No, I earned it. How can that be a sin? And it's often assumed to be the purpose of human life. We, we raise our children telling them, you should study well so you can make it to good schools, study well, go to better colleges so you can get better jobs, and eventually what does it result into? Making more money, right? And so it almost seems like our purpose of human life is to reach those goals and something we strive for and are proud of. But it is one of the greatest sins and makes a person commit all other crimes of violence, falsehood, etc. Why do you think all these major corporations did scams or fraud, or you would even hear things like a brother killed somebody killed their own brother or somebody family member to get the family wealth. Even it takes you that greed takes you to that level of crime. And a lot of times these sins are interrelated. One sin leads to the other. And we have all done that as a child. Maybe if you lied to your mother that you went to a movie and told her I went to school, college, or friend's house. And if the mother questions, then you're trying to tell another lie, and then another lie, and another lie, right? Or sometimes you may hurt somebody's feelings in doing so. So a lot of these crimes are interrelated. We do not see the consequences immediately, but the soul will have to bear them as severe demerits in future. A sinner is always burdened with anxiety, fear, and guilt. Can these ever make anyone happy? That is why we must understand sins and strive to minimize them. Again, just to summarize this introduction, an evil thought, word, or deed, which is the cause of pain and suffering, is a sin. And these include delusions and passions. Sins are of 5 types. Actually, maybe I could share a little slide, so because it always stays better when you see a visual. Okay, are you all able to do this? Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Again, a brief recap of what I've already just said. People indulge in sinful activities to fulfill their desires and to gain happiness. And little do they know that it is not going to give them permanent happiness. Sins bear fruits not wished for, which one has to bear in his current and upcoming life too. It gives one sorrow and pain and life full of hardships. Okay, 1 second. Types of sins. What are sins? Ill thoughts, hurtful words, and bad actions are responsible for driving the soul towards the wrong path. That are cause of its downfall, and intense misery and suffering are known as sins. Delusion, which is mithyatva, which is wrong understanding of how things work in nature, and passions, which is kashai, which is anger, greed, deceit, are impure dispositions, and they are sins too. All kinds of inauspicious thoughts, words, and deeds done under the influence of intense passions and delusions are known as sins. Now we covered types of sins, which is violence, falsehood, theft, unchastity, accumulation. Okay. Now this is all that we will cover right now. And we'll briefly start on the topic of violence, and then depending on how much time we have, we'll take some questions. And this will be a series of multiple lectures, so we can cover it in depth with questions from the audience. So acts like killing, hurting, hitting, emotionally causing pain, and the evil disposition causing these all fall under the category of violence. So we all know what is violence, right? We have seen people hurt physically, other people mentally torture them, and those are very trivial. We can see that that is violence. But what about the internal thoughts that we have towards people? Those are also violence. Okay? And there are so many types of violence that we don't even think that, we are committing violence. Now, so there is, how are we on time, Harshalji? I can start the topic of violence if we have enough time.
You can even take 4-5 more minutes and then we will start the question answers.
All right, so we'll briefly give you the definition of violence, and then we will get into detail in the next lecture series. We observe violence all over the world, right? No matter, I already showed you the clips of the different news items and everything. So violence is everywhere. And sometimes we are part of it. Is that a surprise to you? It sounds like we are not part of it, but I'll tell you how we are. All rejoice when Saddam Hussein was hanged, or some rapist got death sentence. Do you realize that being happy about it is violence? We thought, oh, he deserved that punishment, and we should be happy. No, we ourselves committed that sin of violence for which we would have to bear the fruit of. Do you feel manufacturing weapons like guns and sword is violence too? Do you think that the mere thought of killing someone is violence? Violence comes in various forms. Using cosmetics and leather items that harm animals, bursting firecrackers that kill so many birds and so many small insects, walking carelessly and hurting tiny living beings, cutting trees, plucking flowers. The violence of self and others is a great sin too. So let us understand more about this. What is violence to self? Have you ever, if something wrong happened to you and you just keep thinking about it, why me, why this, that is a violence to yourself. I mean, I'm not even talking about suicide yet. I'm only talking about that guilt feeling, that cribbing to yourself. that is all violence. That's all self-violence. Or demeaning, whether it is your spouse, your children, uh, you think you're improving them, so you put them down. That all falls under the category of violence. And the reason these things happen is we don't understand the root cause of it, and we don't perceive the consequences that we would have to bear. And in order to really avoid them, we should understand the root cause, which is mithyatva, understand the philosophy of karmas. So once that understanding is solid, these sins naturally don't happen by us. Naturally, you don't feel like using leather. If somebody told you, you use this leather and your next life is going to be that cow whose skin is going to be steamed and peeled off, is it going to make you feel like using that leather in this life? Is it really going to make you that happy? No. Or silk for that matter. I quit silk long time ago. And whenever I would tell, like, even my Jain friends that I don't wear silk anymore, and they were like, oh, no, 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 no. This is something I cannot give up. I have too much attachment to my silk clothes, whether it is a sari or whatever it is, right? Why do you think they feel that way? Because they don't understand what the consequences are going to be. That few moments of happiness or pride or whatever they feel by using those articles of violence, what is the result of those? We don't understand. And that is why we end up, using those articles or using cosmetics that come from violence, killing mice or different animals. And we don't even realize that, we are being part of this crime for which we will have to bear the consequence. So I leave you with this thought of what are the sins, small or big, that I commit in my day-to-day life? How can I prevent them? Not by force, but just by mere understanding of the truth. So those just thoughts don't come to me that I should be part of those kinds of sins or activities or thoughts and deeds. Okay, and we'll continue these series going forward, and we'll understand in depth each of these sins and understand how easily we can avoid them. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Prabha ma'am, for this practical approach towards five sins. Your discourse was full of practical examples which happened amongst us in day-to-day lives, which media has already covered, and the kind of thought process which every human deal with in everyday life. And this kind of approach really helped to learn such topics, since these are very important: delusion, five sins, and everything. So, since this is an interactive session, now I request the audience, if you have any queries related to this topic, five sins, which we have covered today, and something surrounding this, revolving this topic, you can feel free to ask or discuss. And if you want to give any feedback related to any example at any point, add any comment, feel free. Anyone from the audience?
I would like to request that we all turn our videos on so I can see you. And this way, it's more interactive and you can bring up any questions you have.
Yes, you can unmute yourself and you can ask the question, or you can raise any point of discussion which you want to. Anyone? Yes.
Hi, I'm just going to start. Thank you, ma'am, again. I'm one of our students from another class. So we've gone through this before in our previous lessons, but I wanted this group to start thinking about certain things that I thought of especially when it comes to children. We generally feel like whatever we are doing for our children, it's for their betterment, but we forget that we are still committing sin if we are doing it with a lot of rag and dvesh, like ma'am pointed out, even if it is still an act of violence for ourselves, first of all, because of the anger that we are feeling. And then for them, if they have some ill thoughts towards us. So, the best way, ma'am, what would be the best way, according to you, to manage the upbringing of a child?
Yes, I totally understand. We all go through that dilemma in day-to-day life, right? I have raised two boys, and with just like any mother has challenges, you want to raise them to the best of your ability with a moral lifestyle. And living in this country where you want them to be vegetarian, you want them to be yet confident. These kids go to school where everybody else is eating meat, and they're the only ones bringing peanut butter sandwich or pulao or poha, and they feel ashamed. Why are we having a different lunch than anybody else? And you have to give your child that solid background, that why we don't kill, why we don't commit those sins, even though today you may think that it looks bad in front of your friends, but these are the reasons why we don't. In fact, I'll tell you an incident. As I worked in my computer science field, we would eat lunch with our colleagues, and I was eating, and of course my food will always be vegetarian. And these people will ask me, this is now there's a lot more awareness, but I'm talking 30 years ago when hardly anybody knew what is vegetarianism in this country. And they would tell me, what would you eat? Just salad? And I'm like, no, there is other food than salad, which is vegetarian. And they would say, we eat meat because we are told by our parents that these animals were put on this earth for us to eat. Now think about that. They're raised with that philosophy, right? So I said, fine, okay. So you were told this in your childhood. Now I want you to think. This was Christmas time, right? And Christmas time, they're very attached to this character deer, which is called Bambi. And some Americans also eat deer meat, right? So I told them, imagine you eating this poor little Bambi. All of a sudden, she's like, no, 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 no. I'm attached to my Bambi. I don't want to eat it. So I said, just like this Bambi has life, so does the cow, so does the chicken, so does pig. All of the animals have life. Do you think they want to be killed? And that lady she wanted to be a vegetarian from starting next day. Because this experiential thought, when it came close to home, is what makes you realize. Just like when you hear rape on the news, it doesn't affect you. If it's your own daughter, that's when it affects you. But we don't need to go through those experiences ourselves. We cannot possibly go through those negative experiences ourselves to learn. So it's in our benefit to learn from others' experiences. Just make it to the feeling level, make it to the experiential level. So you feel it, and then you realize how wrong those things are and never feel like doing it yourselves. So when I gave my children the thorough understanding of why, these things are wrong to eat, they were so confident that they never cared what other students thought of them. And they were able to confidently reply why they are vegetarians, which in turn made some other students who probably had some compassion in themselves from previous lives, they also turned vegetarian. So it's that confident. And how do you get that confident? Knowledge is power. So knowledge is important.
Thank you, ma'am.
When it comes to, we will have challenges. We want our kids to do something. Sometimes we want to scold them, sometimes, but we must understand that, yes, it is violence for us. That'll prevent us from kind of holding back. Yes,
Yeah.
I will tell my child once or twice, and eventually, if he doesn't listen, so be it. He's still a separate soul than me. I'm going to bear fruits of my own deeds. He's going to bear fruits of his deeds. So at some point, you have to separate that.
Right.
Okay,
Thank
Swechha.
you for the explanation, ma'am. Now, Swechha ma'am can ask a question as well.
Yeah, I'm also a student from another class. So, ma'am, I think you have partially answered my question, but it was just a follow-up to Jigisha's question. Again, like we've learned in our class that even that, a lot of rag is also hinsa, right? So my question is again, there is a lot of hinsa that we do, a lot of violence that we do when we have a lot of attachment to people, right? Be it to our kids, to our parents, especially like I have two kids and they are at that stage where, they are forming their careers. So a lot of time you run into a situation where you want them to do things in a certain fashion and they don't end up doing. And in your attachment, you go through a lot of emotional ups and downs, and then in that attachment you end up going through a lot of things, right? And you realize that you end up doing a lot of lot of violence, in the sense,
Yeah.
not physically, but because of your rag you go through a lot of turmoil. So
Mhm.
you understand everything, you do understand that they have their set of karmas to deal with, and they have their own journey. But the whole thing is, how do you deal with it? So while you understand a lot of things,
Mhm.
it is very difficult to apply it when the situation comes. So I really want to understand,
And that is the whole trick of
how
why
what
we are doing
what
these lecture series.
yeah.
Understand it to that level that when that situation occurs to you, you would be able to make that right decision, minimize your sin level. Okay. So let me give you an example. Let us say you trained your children to be vegetarian, good kids, whatever. Now they've turned 18, went to college, they're busy with their careers. Your duty is done when they were growing up. You gave them the best of virtues you could to the best you knew. Maybe you learned things later on after they went to college, right? Which is probably happening to you now, right? But fine, no guilt about that. You gave the best you could at the time, right? And that's all they deserved at that time, right? Now they grow up, they go out, they do things that you did not teach them to do. Now they're doing wrong things. And now you are guilty. Was I a bad mom? Why are they doing these wrong things? Let that parents go through that. So the right, number one, even feeling guilty is a sin.
Right.
No need for guilt. Being aware at the time when you're raising your children is the best thing you can do, and you do to the best of your abilities. Once they are gone, be confident. I gave them the best virtues I could. Even if today they are not following them, the day will come when the sanskar will come back to them, right? The children are going through different time frames. They go to college, they're mingling with all kinds of students,
Yeah.
and everything, the environment is going to affect them.
Influence on them is so strong
It
that
is,
you
it is. So, couple things we can do. One is we keep prodding in between, reminding them what they've learned in their childhood, and still accept the fact that everything is not in our control. And like you said, everybody has their own journey. They happen to be our children in this life. Today we close our eyes. Whose children what? Nothing. You know, uh, I used to tell my mother-in-law had lost three of her sons while she was living. It's a very big, very painful thing for any parent to go through. And I would always tell her, were they ever yours? You were born, you know, you got wealth, house, whatever you got. You were not born with anything. These children came to you only in this short span of life, and they left you. They were just consequences that came and left. So, what was the problem? Thinking they were mine was the only cause of misery.
Mamatva comes in between, no? That is the problem.
Yes, yes. And as we learn, I mean, that is the mithyatva we have, right? That they're mine. They were never yours. And that rag is the cause of a lot of wrongdoings. We think
True.
my child should win. Why? because it's mine. What about the other children that are going to come second, third, fourth, eighth, ninth? Why only my child should be first, right? So that rag is making us do wrong things, making us think wrong, right? Don't we inadvertently, there's a game going on. You want your child to win.
True.
Do you know that is jua? The thinking, feeling of winning and losing?
Yes.
Jua, you know?
True.
And what for what? For that little, tiny little few seconds happiness that my son won the sport and we are causing this sin that we are going to suffer the consequence. So the number one is delusion, the wrong understanding of things, why all this is happening. And again, same, they're all connected, like I said. Rag is connected, which is why we hurt our kids if they don't do the right things, because they're my kids. We have rag towards them. We don't bother other neighbors' kids, even if they're doing wrong things. And rag only goes away once we have the correct understanding, once we get rid of the delusion that we are living in.
Right.
Perfect.
So,
Yeah.
Okay.
yes.
Thank you.
Thank you for the answer. I guess we have one more query from Saurabh ji. You can also raise it.
Yes, Saurabh,
मैम
on your video question. Yes.
मैम एक छोटा क्वेश्चन था। आपने जो बताया अभी कि गिल्ट करना, पश्चाताप करना भी एक टाइप का जीव की हिंसा है। तो हमने तो सुना है गंधर, जो गौतम गंधर को पश्चाताप होने के बाद ही केवल ज्ञान हुआ। ये मतलब मैं तो बचपन से सुन रहा हूँ, तो उसको थोड़ा एनलाइटन करे उस पॉइंट को।
It's a little deeper subject. वो
ओके
कहने में आ सकता है, it can be said that they felt guilty. Yes, we do have our rituals, pratikraman, pratyakyan, to ask for forgiveness of something you did and you realize that you made a mistake. That still holds true. But further advancement of that, and in Gandhar's case especially, what happens is they don't associate themselves with any of those things. They separate themselves as the soul dravya and are separate from the paryaya. Everything happens in paryaya, in the temporary mode of the soul. Nothing happens in dravya. And once you separate those two, then you are not affected by what is happening in the paryaya. Yes, you are affected, yet not affected. It's of course, there's a lot more details to it. And that is what I'm talking about. Because guilt is, there's a difference between guilt and thumbs down. You don't approve of what wrong happened by you. It's okay to not approve because we realize that that was not a good thing to do and we don't approve. Guilt takes you to emotional distress and it's like a hurt to yourself and you don't want to get there. Yes, you understood this now. I did these things wrong in the past. Now I understood they're wrong. So now, even if they happen by me, I don't approve of them. And you keep progressing in your life. You know your life.
उसमें उलझना नहीं है मतलब।
What's that?
मतलब उसमें उलझना नहीं है, बस एक बार
Yes.
समझ के आगे बढ़ना।
Guilt nahi hona doesn't mean that you approve. It's okay to do those things. No, never.
Okay.
That's not what it means.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for your queries. I will just conclude by adding one more point to Shwecha ma'am's query which she raised. So definitely we have only covered up the most Vyavhar part of Hinsa since we have other lectures also. So we will cover the Nishchay part as well. Ma'am will cover it. And there is a granth called Purushar Siddhyupay. There Acharya has mentioned about आत्मा के प्रदेशों में मोह राग द्वेष का उत्पन्न होना ही हिंसा है. So the emergence of attachment, love, and hatred in the space of soul is violence, and vice versa is non-violence. So yeah, I think we can discuss more on it in the further lectures since we are running out of time. But yeah, that was a good point raised, and very happy to see active participation from the students we had today. And yeah, I guess you're done with the
And
session.
in
So
our next lecture, when we talk about violence, I will be talking about the books that
yeah.
can be read to further, get into the details of these topics.
Perfect.
Had them today, but they were not relevant for today's introduction. So
Yeah. Since we have the lecture series to be continued, so we will be having further aspects of this topic since it is a vast topic. So at last, let me just share my screen showing you all since we have very many new faces today. So let me shortly introduce how to access these lectures. So this is Prabha ma'am's lecture. Similarly, if you want to access to other lectures as well, what you can do is I've summarized in a 4-pointer format. Number one, visit JEEV website. Under the section resources, navigate to the topic you want to explore. Let's see here, we have highlighted the 5 sins since we are on this stage. If you want to access to 7 vices, you can go here. If you wanted to access to delusion, you can go here. Once you will go there, it will pop up and it is already mentioned 1 on 4. So once you will open the lecture, click on the topic, you will come to know you'll receive a link to access the course. You can view your course on your dashboard, how much you've completed, either first part of the 4 series or second part of the 4 series. Everything will be visible on your dashboard. Select the course you wish to access and you will gain entry to its content. This content will include articles, presentations, quizzes, and more. So you will get few links such as the link of YouTube of the lecture, the quizzes, the puzzles, and Gurudev Shri's lecture snippets. So everything is there on the dashboard. If you have any query related to it, you can just shortly reach out to us on support@jeev.net.in, and you can also access to our social media channels. And any query, you can drop down the comment and we will just come back to you. Or you can go to the website, call on the number. Every query is entertained. And this is a very beautiful platform designed for the English learners people. So please take the advantage of it. And yeah, for Jinwani Suti, Prabha ma'am.
I'll say the Jinvani Stuti in Hindi, but I'll then translate it. Okay? सहजानंदी शुद्ध स्वरूपी अविनाशी हूँ आत्मस्वरूप सहजानंदी शुद्ध स्वरूपी अविनाशी हूँ आत्मस्वरूप सहजानंदी शुद्ध स्वरूपी अविनाशी हूँ आत्मस्वरूप निज निधि निज में बताई यह अनंत उपकार है इसके लिए जिन वाणी माँ को वंदना शत बार है वंदना शत बार है
9 times Pramukar mantra.
Yeah, I've just said this and I'll translate it into English, that who am I? Sahajanandi Shuddha Swarupi. I am natural, pure, and I am indestructible. So I remind myself that that is who the real me is. I'm just, I let it be, just natural flow, pure and indestructible. And where did I learn that from? From the Jinvani, the Vani that came from the pure souls. And that's why I'm thankful to those scriptures that taught me who I am. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll conclude with the 9 times Pramukar mantra.
Namo Namo Siddham, Namo Aryanam, Namo Vijayam, Namo Sabasahanam.